Welcome to the Black Doctor Collective podcast. We as Black doctors are in a unique position. We can change our communities, healthcare, and the world. Of course, we start by changing the way we see and value ourselves. I'm your host, Dr. Shanika Horn, pediatrician and physician coach, travel extraordinaire. I am so happy to have you here and listening. So let's get into it. Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to an episode of the Black Doctor Collective podcast. We have a treat. It's a guest episode. Pretty exciting. Dr. Tolson Odunsi is an obstetrics and gynecology physician. She received her bachelor's degree from Cornell University, master's in public health from Thomas Jefferson University in Pennsylvania, medical degree from Meharry Medical College in Tennessee, completed her residency in Connecticut, and unfortunately, during her intern year of residency, she became a young widow. This was a life-altering event that prompted Dr. Odunsi to turn her pain into purpose as a self-described life motivator. Continuing her commitment to women's health, Dr. Odunsi underwent fellowship training in minimally invasive and robotic surgery in gynecology and reproductive surgery in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Odunsi has practiced in many states across the country, including Washington, Georgia, Florida, and currently Illinois. This diverse breadth of professional experience has given her an idea of what OBGYN care could and should look like for patients. She's passionate about equitable healthcare, building trusting patient and provider relationships, and improving processes that support continuity of care. Dr. Odunsi is deeply committed to the promotion of diversity in medicine and finds joy in mentoring women of color in medical training. When she's not in the hospital, she enjoys listening and dancing to Afro beats, same girl, same, and exploring whatever city she is in. Welcome.
Thank you. That was a mouthful, huh?
Listen, this is a short bio. I've definitely had people submit a full page, so you good.
I tried to keep it short.
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited to have you here.
For
So
having me. Appreciate it.
we do these bios and it's like all of our credentials, but I really want the audience to hear your story from you, right? Like just tell them your journey and a little bit about what's going on with you.
Thank you for having me. My medical journey started when I was 3 years old. That's when I wanted to be a doctor. But what does a 3-year-old know? Nothing. But I've kept that love of medicine. My dad's a GYN oncologist, and from that early age, I haven't wanted to do anything else. And I think that's what's kept me so far, because it's just been something inside of me that I've wanted to do my whole life. And then had the typical, okay, we go through the normal schooling. And then in college, I thought I was going to go straight to medical school, but I didn't do well on the MCAT. And when I studied for the MCAT, I did the usual Kaplan studying, and my score was it was not great. So I ended up not applying that year. I wanted to go straight after college, but I was also getting married after college as well. So I decided, let me figure out this wife thing and take a year after college to be a wife. But
Yeah.
I did not know what I was going to do after college. I didn't have any plans until after my husband and I got married. And then I decided to apply for I found a loophole because I didn't want to take the GRE. So
Yeah, that was me too. I used my MCAT.
right, so I used my MCAT to get into, as you mentioned, Thomas Jefferson, and I was in their certificate program. And then I maintained a certain GPA and transferred into their master's program. So that's how I dodged another exam and was able to get into the master's program for public health. So that's great. All right, we're going to try this MCAT thing again. And by this time, I'm on my third attempt of the MCAT, and I didn't do well again. So yeah, my application, other than the MCAT, I would say was a competitive competitive application because I had started at Cornell University with a 2.7 GPA and worked my way up to I think it was a 3.5, 3.6. So just the trajectory was strong, and I participated in extracurricular. So the only thing holding me back was this exam, I thought. And the reason why I'm emphasizing that is it's going to be a running theme throughout my career, which is exams, test taking, not doing well, having to repeat exams.
Yeah.
So that was the MCAT. I was ready, meaning I had everything ready June of that year that I applied. And I mentor now and I tell them, okay, get your application in. It doesn't have to be on time, but at least in the summer. But tell me why I was so scared I applied in December of that year. I was so scared, and it took my mom to be like, look, you
Yeah.
need to submit because you're ready. So I'd been ready like June, July, and was so scared I didn't hit submit until December. And
Wow.
it worked out, clearly. Ended up getting 2 interviews and was accepted to both. So I
Nice.
pause here because it's a lesson in just hit submit, because somebody will see your potential and you just need one person to say yes. And imagine if I had hit submit in the summer, all of the different options I would have had. And I'm blessed that the 2 places said yes, because at least I had a choice of which place to go. So I ended up going to Meharry Medical College. I had my first experience with seeing a bunch of Black people in an institution. I'd never gone to an HBCU, and I had a culture shock. I wasn't used to it, but it took about a year to get used to everybody's Black. And then that's where I met lots of my friends. I did struggle in medical school. One of my hacks during Cornell was they had a service that you could pay for where somebody would take notes for you. And it was very thorough, so I could pay attention in the lectures. And then during exam times, great. Somebody took notes for me. They're all neat, they're typed up. And I did well in my classes those last 3 years. But in medical school, I was looking for the take note, like, who's going to be taking notes for me? No, I had to take notes for myself, and really struggled with retaining information. And I would meet with the professors and discuss the material, and they'd say, I don't know what the problem is. You're understanding the material, but then on test day, it all goes out the window. And that's another theme, like test anxiety and just blanking pretty much. So I started, every professor, I did this method of once a week, I would go to their office and just talk through concepts, and hint, they start to share the things that they want to emphasize for the exam that's coming up. So I did do well in medical school. I did fine. I did amazing when it came to going across the street to do the actual rotations, because that's more subjective and it relies on
Personality.
hard work. So I initially thought I was going to do orthopedic surgery. So it was
I did too.
Yeah.
Actually, before I applied to med school, I thought I was going to be a physical therapist because I was trying to find an alternate.
Okay.
And I did a physical therapy internship, and I was so bored. And I ended up doing shadowing in orthopedic surgery, and he was doing like a knee repair, like a meniscal tear or something. And I was like, I love this so much. And that's actually what made me re-decide to go to medical school.
Yeah. Ortho was fun, and I think I could have been successful there. But another theme in my life is I care a lot about women and how they're doing, just in general. I was an RA of an all-women's dorm in college for 2.5 years, been mentoring women for a long time. So that's another running theme in my life, that I just want to see women win, specifically women of color win. So now we're studying for step 1. Okay. Struggling, and I don't pass. I didn't want
Oh,
to gloss over that because step one,
huh.
it's a big exam that people say is going to determine the rest of your life. And that took me to a place that I'd never been to before, where I was depressed and I was seeing my colleagues go across the street to do their rotations. And I didn't really know what to do. So my husband and I actually ended up moving to Delaware, back to Delaware, which is where we lived while I was doing my master's. And what was nice about that is I told my school at the beginning of medical school, I'm going to finish the master's at another year left. So insert, hi, Thomas Jefferson, can I finish this thing?
Yeah.
There's always a loophole. Can I finish this thing while I am studying for step one? So I got my master's, I passed step one, but that was like the longest recovery for any exam that I've had.
Mm.
And we'll get into step two and step three,
I was gonna say, when you say the longest recovery, what do you mean?
meaning to take it again
Like
for
how much time you took between exams? Ah,
how much time I took to retake it. Yeah, it was just really hard to absorb information after that big blow. And I think we do a lot of self-talk
a
when we don't
lot.
do well, and
Yeah.
just listening to the voices of this is going to determine your future.
Oh
If
my God, the pressure.
you can't do anything, and that's just not true.
Yeah. I like what it's funny, right? Because throughout your story, I'm hearing all the times that you've talked to yourself. So you bring up self-talk, and I think about like you said you were so scared you didn't hit send on your application. And so it's a funny thing, like you tell yourself no in order to almost bar yourself from the rejection, right? Like it's a protective mechanism, us telling ourselves no. But then in so many other cases, you tell yourself yes, and that you find a workaround. So you're like, I'm not trying to take this GRE. We're going to go this way. So in this now case where you're like, okay, I didn't pass step one, but I'm still going to keep going. I'm going to go this way. So it's funny because really everything is about what we tell ourselves. So in the cases where you tell yourself no, you realize, oh, I probably shouldn't have told myself no. And then in the cases where you told yourself yes, you're like, this is not the most direct path, but I'm going to find a path. So it's just very interesting to hear like the various stages of thought process and where that took you.
Yeah. And I definitely use that now when I'm mentoring. I'm just like, don't stay
Mhm.
down, like cry for 3 days
Yeah.
and get yourself back up, because it's such a waste of time to marinate on the failure as opposed
Mhm.
to failing forward. And it's easy for me to say now that I'm at the end of the line, but it's so much time that's wasted in just ruminating and thinking you're not good enough, thinking you don't deserve to be here because of a man-made test and
Yeah.
even God. So now I'm just
Yeah.
like, it's just a test that man made.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that's a really important point of about failure that I think people don't see is that the failure is not the actual thing. It's not the test. It's not the moment where someone tells, it's the moment you decide to give up and
Right.
you decide that their no actually means no. That is actually where the failure lies. Because if you try something and it doesn't work and you try something else, right? At some point, you will move forward. At some point, you do succeed. They always say real failure is like just quitting, right? Just giving up on something that you really wanted just because you hit some obstacle. So I like that. It's like a very good life lesson that people should just take.
Yeah. Just don't sit there, because worrying is just like sitting in a rocking chair. It looks like you're doing something, but you're
Yeah.
not moving at all. You're just
Right.
sitting there. So we've taken step one, we've grabbed this master's along the way, and now I'm across the street. Now
Yeah.
I've joined the next class and do all my rotations, do fine. All my shelf exams are fine. Um, but then we get to step two. Oh no, of course. So my grandmother, I'd been preparing, and because of step one, like I'm gonna really study for this thing. which I thought I studied well for step one, but I studied even harder for step two. And 2 days before I took step two, my grandmother passed away, and I was very close with my grandmother. And I knew it wasn't a knowledge thing. I knew the information. So I cried that day and then decided, let me take it. Let me just take it.
Yeah.
And that was my first experience, not first experience with grief, but close to an exam, a major exam. I had another grandparent pass during finals during my first year of medical school, but did okay. But yeah, I refused to allow myself. So I learned the lesson. I refused to allow myself to stay down. I found out I failed during interviews. So I did get interviews with the step one failure. I found out I failed step two during interviews, and I was like, are you kidding me again? It's November.
Yeah.
The last exams for step two were maybe 2 weeks before Christmas. How am I going to do this? I fly to Buffalo because I'm in Nashville. Fly to Buffalo because the testing sites, not all of them are offering exams.
Yeah.
I go with my two sisters and cousin. We hop in the car, go to Canada, and
What?
I take this test before 2 weeks before Christmas and pass.
Amazing.
But it's because I was like, you got to go all out for this one. There's no time for crying,
Yeah.
time for staying down. Do it. Trust that you've left everything on the table and do it and see if it works out. And it did. So I ended up graduating on time with that class. So it took 5 years to finish medical school, but my patients don't ask how long it took me. The
Yeah.
fact
At all. They don't care.
that's all that matters. You finish.
Yeah. Yeah. No one cares. Like the thing is, it's really funny. It's like everyone is the main character of their own life. Right? So when a patient's coming to you, it's not because they're like trying to judge you. They're trying to figure out how you're going to help them. And that is literally everyone's story. It's like whenever you're talking to someone, whenever you're like, people are so internally preoccupied. I always remind people when they're like, oh my God, someone's going to judge me. This is going to happen. I'm like, how much time are you spending thinking about you? And they're like, yeah, a lot. Like it's part of my whole mind spiral. And I'm like, yeah, everybody else is also doing that. So when do they have time to think about you?
Exactly. And I think we all think about ourselves too much and get distracted with what's going on with us. So that's another theme later
Hmm.
for end of residency and how I finished, that it stopped being about me
That's
towards
important.
the end of my training. All right, we got step one done. We got step two done. Okay, cool. We graduate on time. Great. I actually thought I wasn't going to match. I was certain that I wasn't going to match because I had step one, step two, and I matched my number one.
Amazing.
I matched my number one and ended up in Connecticut. So my husband and I, we were doing long distance the last 2 years of medical school. And
Hmm.
I was trying to get back to the East Coast by any means necessary. So Connecticut, and he was in Delaware. All right,
Yeah.
that's a 3 hour drive. Fine, we'll accept it.
Yeah.
We just want to be on different coasts. That would
Right.
have been a very tough long distance marriage. So we did, I start residency. We do long distance most of my first year of residency.
Hmm.
And then he ends up moving the last, I think it was 3 months of my intern year.
Hmm.
And we had a house in Delaware. Great. We move everything to Connecticut. And then the last week of my intern year, suddenly my husband passes away. And
Wow.
that completely rocked my world.
Of
Uh,
course.
it was crazy, not
I can imagine.
anticipated at all. So you talked about a point of pivot, a point of change. That's the point in my story. That would be if you're watching a movie like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's the turning point.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. I feel like I feel the if this was a movie, it's you're the character that we're rooting for because you're facing these obstacles, but you're persevering and it feels, yes, things are gonna work out. You match your number one choice, like things are on the up and up. Your husband finally moves, you're not long distance, and then you get this blow, right? And that's no movie. That's the realest thing ever. How does that shift you? I'm sure in measurable ways, but
So we're talking about a 28-year-old intern
yeah.
who was approaching 7 years of marriage with this person that she's known for 10 years. And my identity was in those two things, medicine and being Don's wife. And I didn't know who I was. I didn't care to continue with medicine, but I had a choice to make. Just like in the past, do I stop here or do I keep going and just take it moment by moment? So this is the point where I stop thinking about the future. I just think about getting through the moment or the day or the week. So I did take a month off and then hopped right back in. And I tell mentees, if you need to grieve, please do that. Because my mental health suffered. There's a period of 10 months that I don't remember because of PTSD. It was just so sudden, and watching him pass, it's traumatizing. And it's still 10 months that I'm working on recovering. I don't know if I'll ever get it back, but your brain protects you. That's part of what your brain does when you suffer that huge of a loss or witness that type of tragedy. My second year, I don't really remember it. There are moments that I remember. The first 4 months, nobody left me alone. There was family or friends with me. And another theme is my family goes hard for each other. And
I was like, that is a blessing.
Yeah, they're a big reason as to why I'm still here and as to why I kept going, because they weren't gonna let me dig myself underground and stay there. So it took, and I don't want to say recover because I'm still recovering and there's no moving on. It's just you move through. So I just took it moment by moment, day by day. Okay, now she hasn't taken step 3, guys. The last thing on my mind, the last priority, I don't care at this point.
Absolutely.
I don't care. And I took step 3. So I took step 1, step 2 twice to physically not have a response to patient presents to the ER. That would that would make me spiral. So it took 4 attempts before I passed step 3. And one can say, man, is she dumb?
No, not at all. See, that's an internal thought, right?
I did think I was like
Yeah.
not smart at all. Like, I'm struggling to take these tests. I had the other exams to base it on. Like, I'm really struggling with these exams. Husband's gone. What is the meaning of life? Why am I here? Went to very dark places. Pretty much every day I wanted to quit and didn't want to be here. So it's only by the grace of God that I made it to the end. Struggled, and it did take me 5 years to finish a 4-year residency. But again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because
what matters is that you finished, honestly.
Right. Here's the thing. I'm the type of doctor that's going to go hard for my patients, just like I went hard for myself. And I have so much empathy for what my patients are going through. And I've encountered widows as a patient, as a physician. And there's a certain level of connection that I feel to them that
Mhm.
nobody else can.
It's true.
So,
Lived experience, right?
yeah. And we're not, as physicians, we're not, I don't think we're good at talking about end of life. And
Oh, at all.
we're not good at it. It's very robotic. And
Hmm.
I think if we can humanize medicine more, patients would have better outcomes. So I don't see all of the failures as a weakness. I don't see how long it took me as a weakness. It just made me a better physician today.
So actually, it's funny because I think this is like such a good point also, because I also mentor med students like you do. And I think this is a conversation that comes up, right? Is when they're presenting some like application, even doctors, right? Because you carry these forward with you as you become an attending, right? You carry these things with you as almost like evidence that it like fuels the imposter syndrome. Like it's evidence that you had it more difficult or rougher than someone else. And so therefore, people who had an easy time or a straighter path somehow are more deserving of being there than you are. And that is a story that we repeat to ourselves when we have failures, right? Like when we don't do exactly the order of things. But when I am talking to like doctors, students, residents, my thought is this is not a weakness because this just shows how much more you were willing to do. This shows your work ethic, your ability to persevere, your resilience. Like you can't say you're resilient if you've never had a challenge, right? So it's you get to learn things about yourself, and these things are actually strengths because this actually means you are a much stronger physician, I think, at the end of the day. You're a much stronger person at the end of the day. And so when I compare myself to other people now, I think if you and I are in the same place and I had struggles and you didn't, doesn't that mean I'm a little bit more adept in getting here? Because if I still got to the same place you got to and I had to overcome things, there's no competition, right? So, like, spinning that language for yourself in your head is super important.
At least saying that you're equal, I think that's a
Yeah.
good place to start. I
Start.
don't think
Yeah.
I'm better
Start.
than any other physician, but I do think that there are unique things about me that make me
Yeah,
stronger in certain areas as a physician.
absolutely.
And we all have things that we're stronger in. Yeah, there are people who went straight through. Sometimes I'll curbside consult them. Look, I got this case. Let's discuss. Help me out. And then they'll call me for other things that have to do with the things that I've gone through. There are
Yeah.
people who send their mentees to me because they didn't fill any exams, so they'll send them to me. Talk to her. If you haven't gone through something, you have no business talking about it.
Agreed.
Period.
Agreed. Agreed.
Period.
Yeah, you just can't. It's a little hard too, right? Because we do that in medicine all the time. So everybody feels like our entire profession is almost coaching people through things, teaching people things that we have not ourselves experienced.
Right.
And I think, like you said, because of that, sometimes we are not great at some of these conversations, some of these difficult conversations. And that is, I think that's a strength is to be able to lean on others for whom that is an area of expertise, right? Being able to go outside yourself and ask for help and to refer and to call people in, I think still requires you to understand that you are good enough, even if that's not your area of expertise, right? You know how to be resourceful. You know what you don't know, and you don't use that against yourself. I think that's like the point is just don't use these things against yourself.
Right. Exactly. And I don't think it's a knowledge or intelligence thing. And plot twist, I did take an intelligence test. I thought I had some sort of learning disability. So I did get tested. And that came back as actually, you don't retain information because you're depressed. So I
Oh.
did actually apply for accommodations and got extra time. And that's when I passed step 3.
Mhm.
And then in terms of asking for help, I've definitely learned to do that more because we all are like the top 10% of the country, right?
Yeah.
We're all, I don't think I'm type A, but sure, we'll put that label on. We're all striving to be the best. We're all put against each other versus collaborative when we're in school and training, and I got to get honors, I got to get the highest score, I got to make AOA. It's just, it creates this environment that is not conducive for everybody to learn, as opposed to relax, chill. And I'm not talking about being lazy. I'm just like, why are we making
Right.
it so intense? I love learning. I love teaching. I have medical students all the time in clinic and
Hmm.
residents that I'm training. Chill out.
Yeah.
Make it
Don't add.
so intense. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be. Yes, there's patients' lives in our hands, but you need to be able to function under pressure. I'm a surgeon.
Yeah.
One of the things that was consistent in my evaluations in residency was you cannot tell if she's nervous. It's just
Yeah.
great.
Unflappable. Yeah.
Yeah. So that translates to your team. You're able to lead better when you don't react to things. And I think all of the things I went through was like, okay, I'm comparing everything to death now.
Yeah.
It's really not that serious. It's
Yeah.
serious, but we don't need to respond with that level of intensity because our team is looking at us and we
Hmm.
need to behave accordingly.
Yeah.
Um, and just to go back with asking for help, I did get a tutor for that last round as well.
Hmm.
And that was a big help because then I had to get out of my head. And that tutor was very encouraging and
Hmm.
reassuring that, again, just like going to the professor's office every week, the material. It's not
Yeah.
a knowledge thing. It's the self-doubt, negative self-talk. And I feel like the exams are 50% mental.
Huh. I almost want to say they're like 75% mental.
I'm being very generous.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. So you have this story that's super powerful, and you're able to, I think that's like a huge skill set, being able to look at your story and pull from it lessons that allow you to move forward. So you use this skill repeatedly, it sounds on each step of the way, like step of the way, right? You are literally using this to propel yourself. So you complete your steps, you finish residency, you said in 5 years, right?
I finished in 5 years and okay, you've been rooting for me. We got to take the OBGYN written boards. I know there's
Like
an
never ending with these tests.
the OBGYN written boards and the OBGYN oral boards. Passing both of them on the first time, thank God.
Amazing.
And I just broke down crying when I became board certified because it's just the culmination of I'm taking the MCAT 3 times and then this windy path of getting to the end. And that was such a proud moment. And I became board certified when I went on to do fellowship. So I'm there celebrating, and I'm just thinking, this is what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the I passed, it's the lessons and the journey, the
Yeah.
grit, determination, the
Mm-hmm.
maturity that
Mm-hmm.
comes. Remember, we started off as a widowed intern at age 28. Now we're in our 30s. We're done.
Mm-hmm.
We've learned a lot of life lessons that people don't learn in their lifetime. So
Yeah.
that's a big part. I don't even know where my board certification is. I don't care where it is. It's just, I feel like I'm in such a different place now.
Yeah.
Joy returned. I pour into other people. And like I said, at the end of residency, it stopped being about me. It started being about, okay, there's a mentee somewhere who thinks that this is the end of their career or they're
Mm-hmm.
taking too long to do it. How do I
Mm-hmm.
pour back? So
Mm-hmm.
that's actually my mission, to pour back into mentees
Yeah.
and give them someone to look at who didn't stay down
Mm-hmm.
and have a traditional route to get here, and that they can do it too. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's just another strength, right? Is the ability to not, like you said, sit and suffer, but to turn it around, not just for yourself, but then also reach back and try to help others do the same thing.
I know a lot of physicians, they had a traumatic experience, or they didn't have the best residency experience or fellowship experience, and they take that in and say, I'm just going to do the same to the next generation. I don't agree with that. I think
Yeah.
we have a responsibility to treat trainees the way we would have
Oh
liked
God, yes.
it. And
I'm
just
yes.
vicious cycle if we are mean and nasty.
And I think it really just stems from unhappiness, right? Because no one who is joyful is out there making someone else's life a misery, right? And I think when we internalize having a hardship and it becomes the story of why we are not enough or we attribute that to becoming who we are. Like we needed the struggle to become this person, and we think that's the only way we became successful. I think both of those are like toxic, pervasive attitudes you find in medicine. And it's just so harmful because all we're doing is making medicine a terrible place to work.
Absolutely. And I've struggled with that identity piece. Okay, who am I? What am I? What do people know me for? That
Mhm,
actually doesn't matter anymore. So we can
mhm.
strip away wife, we can strip away physician, we can strip away widow, we can strip away all these labels, and I'm just me. And I also know who I am in Christ. And no matter what somebody else says about me, I know what the truth is. So when I talk to mentees, I tell them it's not just about saying affirmations, it's speaking life into yourself and telling yourself the truth of who you are. Like, I wasn't dumb, and I knew I wasn't dumb the last year of my residency. That's when that was broken. That thought of, am I stupid? No, you're not.
Yeah.
First, took the test, your normal intelligence. But even without that test, it's not about intelligence. So fast forward, after residency, I did take 4 months off and just wanted to decide, is medicine for me? Like for real?
Mhm.
Did fellowship, did traveling OBGYN, locums. I'm in a permanent job now. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, that's funny that I lost my train of thought because that leads to the next thing. I was diagnosed with ADHD after I became board certified. And
Yeah.
that just gave me the answer of, that's why you struggled so much, because you had this undiagnosed real thing that was going on, then
Mhm.
stack on grief,
Yeah.
stack on anxiety, like which one
Sure. And yeah.
came first? So let's say I had the resources back in MCAT days, back in
Right.
college, and I had the extra time like I had with that last iteration of step 3. What if I had those resources back then? So yes, there's a bit of grieving with that. Dang, I wish I knew. But would my story have been as powerful?
It would have been a different story altogether.
Completely different story. What if I passed step 1, 2, 3? I don't know. I really don't know what would have happened. It sounds very boring.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, lived happily ever after. I would love to have had my marriage, but the other parts, if we're strictly talking about career, they give my story flavor. They give it a little something extra.
Mhm, mhm. And it
And I
gives you, like you said, perspective. Yeah. It gives you the perspective to be able to talk to other people who probably need that and need to see that it's not always a straight path. Everything in medicine is not linear. Healing is not linear. So, yeah.
for sure. So now
Wow.
this is the end of the movie. Maybe it's still the middle because I'm not gone yet. So
Yeah.
we're at this point in the movie. You guys are rooting for me. I'm doing good.
there's even more to it, right? Which is that, because I know part of your story, because the way it aligns with mine is I also took a break right after training, trying to figure out if medicine is even for me. Because you go through all this stuff, and like you said, we're in these environments where people maybe are not supportive, and you already have anxiety and depression and 50 other things going on. And then you're in a terrible workplace, and you get so derailed by all of the circumstantial things that you even forget what it's like to connect to people in that way, right? The reason you decided to be in service in this way. And when you lose that, because it's easy to lose, you lose that after years of being like going through every hurdle, obstacle, bad attitude, like everything that you're facing. How did you decide, yes, medicine is still for me, and even sign on for a permanent position?
So I vowed that I would never do clinic again, and I'm doing
Yeah.
so I tried other things. So I tried nannying, I tried
Wow.
other hobbies and things like that. I'm multi-passionate about things, and I was able to do things that I enjoyed. I
Mm,
was able to fall back in love with medicine, and going to the different hospitals and systems let me know what I love and what I don't like.
yeah,
So
exactly.
that I was able to do this process of elimination process. I was able to do this process of elimination. And the reason why I signed on to this permanent job is I was doing a locums job, was working part-time here, and just really loved that it catered to number
Hmm.
one, my priorities now, family
Hmm.
and spending time with them. Number two, how do I thrive with ADHD as a physician? So I
Hmm.
actually need more structure and routine with a sprinkle of impulsiveness and chaos. I still like things to be exciting. So my current schedule lets me be a physician, but also all these other things that I love.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it took 4 years, but I love, love, love what I do. I love my patients. And I never thought I would say that ever. I
Right.
had colleagues who would say that. I was like, okay, I don't get it. I love what I do, and it brings me so much joy. And I'm so thankful that I was able to have this opportunity to be in an environment where I feel supported,
Yeah.
where ADHD isn't used against me. It's, oh, how can we help you? What are some extra things that you need? And I'm relaxed. Remember I said we all need to just relax, because that's now my curiosity for learning. It's so much higher. And
Yeah.
my mentees, the medical students that rotate, they can feel it. The residents can feel it. I love teaching again before I did it, because it was just like when you're not in a good environment, all those things don't come out. You
Right.
retreat into yourself, and you're not actually the person that you're supposed to be.
Yeah, you're just surviving. You're like existing. The thing that I feel like this is what I'm thinking about as you tell this story is that because of this theme where things didn't work out, and then you were able to find a solution, a workaround, an alternate pathway that better suited you or added to your story, and you internalize that. I can create other pathways to success. I almost, it makes me feel like that is one of the ways to finding a healthy, happy career in medicine, right? Because if you have no obstacles, you follow the path exactly as it's laid out. I find that's where people get in trouble because they continue to follow the path, even as an attending. They are like, oh, I'm supposed to do this thing. I'm supposed to climb the academic ladder. I'm supposed to do this. And everybody hates their job. We just all have to follow this path, right? And they have never learned to find the alternative and to find the work or even to desire that as an outcome.
Mhm.
So I think your story really allowed you even to be like, you know what? I can take a break and figure things out. I can try a bunch of things. I can take that lesson and apply it to my career. And that is what I think renews our love of medicine, because that's literally what I did. Like I took a break, I went into locums, I got to pick and choose the best elements of medicine. And it was when I was like definitive about this is what I need to be successful. This is how I will practice. I cannot let anybody else tell me how to do things. I have to do it my way. As when I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. I actually really like this. And I enjoy patient interaction. Surprise to me, because I would have told you when I finished fellowship that I was never going to practice again.
Yeah, you bring up good points. So that 4 months off that I took after residency, I'm all for taking breaks. If you need
Yeah,
to reset and pivot, even as an attending, I've taken 6 months off
me
before
too.
before I fell in love. I took 6 months off to figure like, what am I doing? Can I do this for the rest of my life? I
Mhm.
started a home organization business.
Nice.
I love organizing. I love the visual acuity. Like there's something, and I don't know if it's the ADHD or like a little bit of OCD tendencies, but I have visual intelligence and I tried that. I have other things going on in the background, other businesses, and I feel like being able to work the right side of my brain, the creative side of my brain, it gives me so much joy. And we're so multifaceted that it would be a shame to just box yourself into the stereotypical physician of the 70s or the
Yeah.
80s. Like
Yeah.
a different generation, and I'm excited for what our generation is doing and how
Yeah.
we're doing medicine differently because it's not one size fits all. There are other parts of us that we need to tap into. We don't
Mhm.
have to accept the status quo. We don't have to accept the way medicine has been just because it has. That's not a good enough reason for
No.
me. I question
No.
everything. It's like, why do we do this? We've always done it this way. Okay, but why? Like,
Why?
is there a better
Stop.
way?
Can we please stop?
Stop, right.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I love that I'm seeing amongst our generation of physicians is because we are not willing to just completely lose ourselves, right, in medicine in this way. And we're also not willing to just do what we're told. And we're exercising creativity in all these different ventures. I see physicians doing such a wide variety of things inside and outside of medicine. And I find that there's just this beautiful creativity that's happening now where people are using like their medical skills, but then maybe applying it in some other way or figuring out really cool interventions for their patients, like better ways to educate or serve in some other way. Or they're just like, doing something completely outside of medicine, but because they are organized and they're leaders and they have all the skills that they built in medicine, they now can apply it in some totally different field in a creative way. And just the mix of that, I think, is just so nice and energizing to see. Right? We can do a million things. Like you said, we're probably the top 10% in terms of like education, right? So the ability to apply that into a ton of different areas is only going to improve our society as a whole. So there's just no losing for treating yourself well and taking a break. Love it. Okay. Oh, this was such a good story and it's ongoing. So because it's ongoing, I'm sure people are going to be like, we need to see what is going on with you. So if they don't already interact with you on social media, where is the best place for them to find you?
Sure. It's definitely not email, but they can find me on Instagram at Life by Tosin.
Hmm?
And that's pretty much where I hang out, not with the TikTok girlies. I I don't know. We'll see. But
Yeah.
all of the handles for everything is Life by Tosin. So come
Yeah.
along for the ride. I know my story's not done. There's
Not
more
at all.
stuff coming up. So I'd love to have you as part of the squad if you find me.
Yeah, so we'll put all that information. You guys know what's going to be in the show notes. So click, follow, get engaged, follow the story. You have great content, so I can't imagine that people are not going to want to see your story and enjoy it. And so thank you for coming. I appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty. I think like obviously people learn from that, connect to that. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for having me. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yes. Okay. So maybe we'll do another episode in the future where we get an update on all things that have developed. We will see, because this is TBC, right? To be continued. All right, guys. So if you don't already follow Dr. Odunsi on Instagram, follow Life by Tosin. It's going to be a good time. And until then, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast. And what I want you to do next is link us everywhere you can. Instagram at The Black Doctor. Just become part of our collective. I want you here. Thanks. Until next time. Bye.